You were honest. You showed up. You gave her what you could. You tried to be consistent, available, emotionally present, but instead of appreciating that, she found flaws in it. She started picking you apart slowly, gradually, until everything you did became too much, too little, too fast, too late. She said you were controlling when you were just concerned. She said you were distant when you were trying to give her space. She said you were the one who changed, but deep down you knew she started drifting first. That's the twisted part. When someone hurts you and then somehow makes you feel guilty for reacting, you get caught in this emotional loop trying to defend yourself while trying not to lose her, and you lose yourself in the process. It didn't start with blame. It started with silence, with withdrawal, with her saying, "I'm fine," when clearly she wasn't, and you, like any man who cares, kept trying to understand. You kept asking questions, kept showing up. But slowly, the emotional energy became one-sided. You started feeling like the only one fighting. Then came the blame. Suddenly, your every move had a consequence. A comment you made 3 weeks ago, she brings it up today like a case file in court. An argument you thought was settled. She throws it back like you never apologized. And even your silence becomes an offense. You don't care about me. You're emotionally unavailable. You're the reason I'm acting this way. And you start to wonder, did I really mess up this badly? But here's the truth. You didn't. You were reacting to emotional pain. You were trying to understand a shift in her behavior. You were responding like a man who values connection. But because she couldn't face her own guilt, her own emotional damage, she turned the mirror toward you and said, "This is your fault." And that sets what gaslighting feels like. You're not just hurt. You're confused. You don't trust your own thoughts anymore. You walk on eggshells. You rehearse conversations in your head before you speak. You suppress your needs just to avoid another fight. And still, somehow, you're always the problem. Gaslighting is emotional warfare. It's a form of control. It's when someone twists your reality so much that you lose your sense of self. And the worst part, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens in pieces. Little comments, emotional punishments, shifting blame, withholding affection, comparing you to others, telling you, directly or indirectly, that you're not enough. She hurt you, maybe through words, maybe by emotional abandonment, maybe by betrayal, but she never truly admitted it. Instead, she blamed your reaction. She said you were too sensitive, or too insecure, or overthinking. And you ignored that voice because you didn't want to lose her, because you thought love meant sacrifice, because somewhere you believed that if you tried a little harder, she'd see the good in you again. You kept showing up for someone who kept shifting the goalpost. She'd say, "You're not romantic enough, so you'd try harder." Then she'd say, "You're trying too much." You'd try to give her space. Then she'd say, "You're distant." Nothing was enough, because the problem was never you. It was her inability to process her own emotions, her own regrets, her own self-worth. And instead of working through that, she chose the easy route, blame. Blame is a defense mechanism. When someone doesn't want to face their own behavior, they project it onto others. It's easier for her to say, "You made me act this way," than it is to say, "I am emotionally immature and I don't know how to handle intimacy." It's easier to say, "You pushed me away," than to admit, "I have a fear of vulnerability and commitment." It's easier to paint you as toxic than to admit she sabotaged a good thing, because deep down she doesn't believe she's worthy of it. Blame allows people to escape accountability. And if you're not careful, you'll end up carrying emotional weight that was never yours to carry. That's what many strong men go through silently. They absorb it, they internalize it, they try to be the emotional savior. They say, "Maybe I did mess up, maybe I was too much," and they stay, they give chances, they ignore red flags, and in doing so, they bleed themselves dry. But here's the raw truth. You cannot love someone into emotional maturity. You can't save her from herself. You can't keep absorbing her projections and calling it love. You have to recognize when someone is not ready for the kind of love you bring, and instead of staying and breaking yourself into pieces trying to make them whole, walk away. Not because you hate her, but because you love yourself enough to stop bleeding for someone who won't even acknowledge that they're holding the knife. It's not weakness to feel hurt. It's not weakness to want answers. It's not weakness to desire clarity, but what is weakness is staying in a cycle where your pain is minimized, your voice is silenced, and your efforts are constantly flipped against you. You owe it to yourself to recognize that not every woman is emotionally safe. Some women, just like some men, operate from trauma, not truth. They manipulate instead of communicate. They blame instead of heal. And unless they choose to grow, you will always be the villain in their story. But you don't have to play that role anymore. You don't have to explain yourself to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to shrink to make her feel bigger. You don't have to fix what you didn't set break. The truth is, she hurt you, and then she blamed you, not because you were wrong, but because you were honest. And people who live in denial always attack the truth tellers first. Let her go. Let her version of the story be hers, even if it's a lie. Is the one you live after her, the one where you finally choose yourself. You see, men are raised with this idea that strength equals silence, that pain is weakness, that if you're hurting, you better bury it, toughen up, move on. But how do you move on when your soul is bleeding quietly? How do you heal when you're being blamed for wounds you didn't cause? And so, you stayed silent. You stayed strong in the way you were taught, not by sharing your pain, but by carrying it alone. You didn't want to be seen as emotional, needy, reactive. You kept it all inside, trying to be the bigger person. You thought your silence was maturity. And this is what so many men go through silently, that internal war between not wanting to lose her and not wanting to lose yourself. You suppress the frustration, you hide the disappointment, you even question your own emotions because she keeps saying you stir overreacting, or it sits not that deep, or you're making a big deal out of nothing. You get tired, not physically, emotionally. And what sepsis is worse? The moment you break down and express what you're really feeling, she calls it weakness. She uses it against you, or she distances herself even more. That's why most men don't express themselves anymore. And that's why you started doubting yourself. That's why you questioned your own memory, your own logic, your own version of events. Because every time you tried to explain what hurt you, she made it about her. Every time you tried to be heard, she talked over your pain. She made you feel like your experience wasn't valid, like your truth wasn't real unless she agreed with it. But let me say this clearly. You do not need her agreement to validate what you felt. Your pain is real even if she denies it. Your confusion is real even if she gaslights you. Your effort is real even if she says you never tried. Stop looking for confirmation from the very person who distorted your reality in the first place. You don't need her permission to believe your truth. You don't need her version of the story to justify walking away from it. And when you start to reclaim your own version of events, when you stop playing into the narrative where you're always the villain, something powerful happens. You detach, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally saw what staying was costing you. You detach, not to punish her, but to protect yourself. Because the most powerful decision a man can make is the moment he realizes he doesn't have to keep proving his worth to someone who refuses to see it. You've been trying to win the approval of someone who's not emotionally available. You've been trying to earn love from someone who is not capable of giving it. You've been trying to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. And it's just not your job to fix that. It's not your responsibility to teach someone how to treat you. You teach them by what you allow, by what you tolerate, and most of all, by what you walk away from. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means clarity. It means seeing things as they are, not as you wish them to be. It means no longer being emotionally controlled by her moods, her silence, her guilt trips, her manipulation. It means reclaiming your time, your energy, your sense of peace, and no longer giving it to someone who only drains it. But let me tell you something. No one ever told you love is not supposed to hurt like this. Love is not supposed to confuse you. It's not supposed to make you question your worth. It's not supposed to feel like war. You've been mistaking emotional survival for emotional connection. You have to detach from the fantasy, from the potential, from the hope that maybe one day she'll see your value. You have to stop falling in love with who she could be and accept who she is. Because who she is has already hurt you. Who she is may not be capable of loving you the way you deserve, and that's not your fault. You didn't fail as a man. You just gave your loyalty to someone who didn't know what to do with it. And now it's time to take it back. Take back your dignity. Take back your peace. Take back your voice. Not for revenge, not to prove a point, but to protect your soul from further damage. You've done enough explaining. You've done enough defending. You've done enough waiting. Now it's just time to detach and choose yourself. Because the moment you do, you stop bleeding for someone who was never going to stop cutting. You kept choosing her while she kept disrespecting you. And that wasn't love. That was emotional blackmail wearing the mask of connection. There comes a moment when you realize that continuing to accept blame for someone else's damage is no longer empathy, it's self-betrayal. Every time you allowed her to twist the truth, rewrite the story, pin her behavior on you, you were training her to believe that your loyalty was unconditional, even when her behavior was reckless. And here's what most men don't see until it's too late. When you consistently tolerate disrespect, you slowly start to lose the one thing that makes you a man, your self-respect. She pushed your limits, crossed your boundaries, emotionally punished you and blamed you, and you still stayed, you still tried to fix it, you still tried to love her through it. But what did you get in return? More guilt, more blame, more silence, more confusion. You see, a woman will test you, not just to see how much you care, but to see how much of yourself you're willing to sacrifice to keep her. And once she knows you'll compromise your truth, your peace, your values, just to keep her around, that's when she starts losing respect for you. And the irony is, the more you try to prove your love to her after she's already damaged you, the more she sees you as weak. Because love, in her mind, now equals control. She no longer sees your kindness as strength. She sees it as submission. You have to stop choosing her when it costs you. You have to stop accepting emotional blackmail disguised as love. You have to stop trying to win back someone who keeps blaming you for bleeding after they're the one who cut you. And I know that's not easy. I know it feels like quitting. I know you think, if I just try harder, maybe she'll finally understand. But no, she won set, because she's not trying to understand you. She's trying to control you. And the moment she sees that her tactics no longer work, she'll panic, she'll gaslight harder, she'll blame louder, she'll try to flip it all on you again because she's afraid of being exposed. She knows the truth. She just doesn't want to be held accountable for it. And that's the trap you've been stuck in. Trying to find peace with someone who uses blame as a weapon. Someone who hides behind her trauma and punishes you for trying to love her through it. But you cannot fix someone who refuses to be honest about what they broke. You don't need her acknowledgement to heal. That closure, it comes from you, from finally choosing to stop the cycle, from no longer needing her to see your worth in order for you to believe in it again. Because here's the truth. Most men avoid. She may never admit what she did to you. She may never say, I'm sorry. She may never take accountability. She may move on and tell everyone it was your fault. She may twist the story, play the victim, and convince the world she was the one who suffered. And you'll be tempted to speak up, to defend yourself, to explain your side. But don't set, because the moment you need her to validate your healing, you're still giving her power. You are not here to teach her what she already knows but refuses to admit. You are here to heal. You are here to grow beyond this. You are here to let the pain wake you up, not break you down. And that's where the transformation happens, when you stop needing anything from her and start creating everything within yourself. You no longer need her to recognize your worth, because now you recognize it. And that changes everything. When she realizes that you're no longer reacting to her games, she'll get scared. When she sees you've detached, grown colder, calmer, more grounded, she'll panic. Because her power came from your confusion. Her control came from your emotional dependency. And now that you've taken it back, she can't manipulate you anymore. The truth is, she blamed you because you were a mirror. You reflected things in her she wasn't ready to face. You showed her what emotional maturity looks like, and it terrified her. You gave her real love, and it overwhelmed her. So she turned it around, blamed you for expecting too much, accused you of being too emotional, too intense, too difficult. But what she really meant was, you see too much of my truth and I don't want to deal with it. Her blame is not about you, it's about her fear. Fear of being seen, fear of being exposed, fear of being loved so deeply that she actually has to change. You were a threat, not because you were toxic, but because you were real. And when someone's lived their life in illusion, reality is the most dangerous thing you can offer them. Instead of saying, I said I'm scared, she said, you Sarah the problem. And that's what you need to understand. Her blaming you was not a reflection of your character. It was a defense against her own pain. Let her live in that story. Let her believe what she needs to believe to sleep at night. But you choose a different path now. You choose healing. You choose peace. You choose self-respect because she hurt you. Then she blamed you. But now she can no longer touch you. You see her free, but it happened. She hurt you. She flipped the blame. And you were left standing there with a heart full of questions and a mind full of silence. And now you see her here in the aftermath. You've played the story back 100 times, haven't you? Trying to find where it went wrong. Wondering what you could have done differently. Looking for the moment, that one thing you said or didn't say that might have caused it all to collapse. But the truth is, the collapse was never about one moment. It was about two people, and only one of them was willing to be real. And that was you. You showed up. That's it's brave. Because real masculinity isn't measured by how much you can dominate. It's measured by how much truth you can carry in a world full of lies. And you carried a lot. You carried the emotional weight of a relationship where you were made to feel like the villain for reacting to being hurt. You carried the silence, the shame, the late night thoughts, the conversations you never got to have, the closure you never received. You were not destroyed. You were broken open, and that sip's different. Because destruction ends things. But being broken open, that's how you begin again. Your pain was a teacher. It was showing you where you gave too much, where you settled too low, where you tolerated what you should have walked away from. It was teaching you where your boundaries were weak, where your emotional discipline was lacking, where you needed to heal before you could love again. You see, she hurt you, yes, but that pain, it has a purpose now. It's showing you who you are when everything falls apart. It's showing you the parts of yourself that you ignored while trying to keep someone else happy. It's showing you how to stop chasing people who don't know how to be caught. The version of you that went through that chaos, that man who sat in silence with a shattered heart and kept showing up every day anyway, that version of you, that's who you need to honor now. Not by begging her to come back, not by hoping she regrets it, not by trying to prove she was wrong, but by becoming so deeply rooted in your own peace that nothing like that ever shakes you again. Your pain should never go to waste. Don't let it just become another heartbreak story. Let it become the fuel that sharpens you, the clarity that changes you, the moment that turns the boy who chased validation into the man who commands respect. Let this experience refine your character. Let it burn away the people-pleasing. Let it remove the insecurity. Let it kill the version of you who thought he had to earn love by bleeding quietly. Because now, you don't need love that costs your dignity. You don't need connection that comes with blame. You don't need relationships that confuse your identity. What you need is a version of yourself that doesn't settle, a version of yourself that knows how to walk away when peace is no longer part of the equation, a version of yourself that doesn't chase but attracts, not by games, not by manipulation, not by pretending, but by standing so solid in his truth, so clear in his standards, so full in his own self-worth, that only the emotionally mature can even get close to him. This pain, this was the refining fire, and you made it through. No more over-explaining. No more defending yourself to people who choose ignorance. No more carrying the weight of someone else's emotional immaturity. She lost a man who was willing to show up with his whole heart. And now you rise, not as a man looking for revenge, but as a man who finally sees his own value with or without her.